Hello fellow cinephiles. So I'm going to do something a bit different today with this review. With the release of How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World, I've decided to review 3 of the films as a trilogy rather than individually. Just because I think it's a story that evolves and carries on from one to another, and I've never really done a trilogy together reviewing it. And I'm going to give a score out of 5 for all 3 of the films together as a trilogy. Alright, so I'm going to start with the first one, obviously, How to Train Your Dragon. So this was directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBoss. And the characters are voiced by Jay Bichelle, Jonah Hill, America Ferrera, Gerard Butler, Kirsten Wiig, TJ Miller. It really looks at Hiccup, a young Viking boy who's trying to prove himself to his father in his village. They're known for being well-trained dragon hunters. No matter how much he tries to be like his father or the rest of the village, he just can't do it. He's just not made of those sort of things. He's very different to them. He's a sort of a standout in that. He's not comfortable with this and just wants to be part of the group. He wants to be part of everything. He wants his father to be proud of him, who's not, because he's not. His father doesn't think he's who he should be. Ultimately, it looks at him taking down a very furious and well-known dragon known as a Dark Fury. It's about the friendship he forms with this dragon. He can't bring himself to kill him, and he ultimately becomes friends with him, and everything he learns from the dragon he uses for his training when he's training to defeat dragons in the ring, and he uses particular techniques to take them down without hurting them or harming them in any way. And he becomes the toast of the village, I guess you could say. And then it's found out later that he is friends with this dragon that he calls Toothless due to his retracting teeth. And his father is just disappointed in him and disgusted with him being friends with this dragon, their ultimate foe, that someone they've fought against for so long. And he doesn't believe in his son. But he's proven wrong as the film goes on, and ultimately Toothless saves Hiccup from his death, even though he does lose a leg. It sort of cements him as an important part of Hiccup's life. What I really liked about this film is it really shows a young teenage guy trying to work out who he is and where he fits. He's trying to impress his father and be like his father and be like the rest of the people in his tribe and his family. And we all feel that. He's a very relatable character. It's a character you can really get behind, and most of us have felt that way, not fitting in, not being part of things, but really wanting to and not knowing how to do that and struggling with accepting that we're different to everybody else. I think the animation's quite good. It gets better as the films go along, it progresses, much like the story and the characters. But here it's pretty solid. I like the look of the dragons and the world that we're introduced to. I like the way that each character looks, and the voice work is really brilliant by all the actors. They do a fantastic job. And you really believe these characters and you can really get behind them. I really like the relationship between Hiccup and his father. I like that father and son dynamic, and how he keeps trying to prove himself and keeps trying to show he is worthy, and his father's just completely disappointed in him all the time. And how they overcome their differences to become close and connected once again. It's a really interesting film and well done and very entertaining. It's a little kiddie, but it is entertaining. You can enjoy it as an adult and as a child. And I thoroughly got a lot out of this film. I like the relationship that Hiccup has with Astrid, which a romance sort of begins with them too, and I really like her in this. It's kind of just a really solid story, I think, and has a really good arc for the character, and I enjoy this thoroughly. Okay, How to Train Your Dragon 2. This keeps evolving the story of Hiccup and Toothless and the family, and how they're evolving and changing along the way. Hiccup sort of is slowly becoming an adult. He's sort of early 20s, I would say, and he's sort of trying to find his own path. His father wants him to take over being chief once he steps down or passes away, and Hiccup doesn't know if he can do this. He doesn't know if he's worthy to be a king. He's more interested in exploring the world, and this is one thing this film really does. It explores the world, it opens the world, and we see a much more wider world than we did before, and he's starting to map it out. He's starting to try and find his own way through life and doing his own thing. He still feels a bit lost, not knowing his mother, who previously known to be had passed away when he was a little baby, and so he hasn't had that interaction with her, and he doesn't know who she is to really know who he is. So this one sort of looks at Hiccup and Toothless discovering an ice cave with a mysterious figure that is filled with wild dragons and a mysterious dragon trainer and a mysterious dragon rider. And the two friends, Toothless and Hiccup, find themselves in an epic battle to save the future of man and dragons. We're introduced to a particular new character from his past that we think is dead and then arrives, and it's kind of interesting to see that particular character arise. I like the continuation of the relationship between Hiccup and his father, and how his father wants him to be chief. But Hiccup doesn't know if he can do it. He doesn't know if that's really his thing. He believes it's his father's thing, and his thing is searching the world and expanding his horizons and just traveling around. He doesn't want to be stuck down being the chief of this, and he doesn't think he's worthy of it. And introduce sort of a new sort of world. There's a particular villain out there who's trying to create a dragon army, and he's got dragon hunters out there trying to capture them to become part of his army. He's a character from Hiccup's father's past, and there's a real mystery to him. You don't quite know who he is or what his agenda is or why he's beginning this army. This is a kind of an interesting character. We're also introduced to a mysterious dragon rider who turns out to be a really interesting character and someone from Hiccup's past. And ultimately in this one, everyone's sort of riding dragons now. The dragons have become part of their world, and each one of the riders gets their own dragon, and it's sort of about the relationships they form with the dragons. And I kind of like that. I like we got to see much more of the world. They tried to expand the scope and the ideas and what was happening for the characters. And Hiccup has sort of evolved yet again. He wasn't the young kid that we met in the first film. Now he's a bit older and a bit on his way to sort of being an adult. He's making his own decisions. He's advanced his saddle and stuff for Toothless, and he's also come up with a flying rig that he can fly by himself without the assistance of Toothless, which I think is really great. He's sort of an inventor and an interesting sort of character like that. Then we find out Toothless has another ability he didn't know about, and so that's yet again evolving that Toothless character. So you're evolving the human character and the dragon as well, and I think that's fantastic. And the relationship between Hiccup and Astrid has grown and become really interesting, and I like their relationship in there. I like the dynamic between the two characters and the dynamic between the two actors. I think they both did a really brilliant job. And it sort of looks at people assuming these two are going to get married, and they really talk about that and pushing them towards that. But they don't know if that's really what they want to do. Ultimately, Hiccup suffers a great loss in this film that affects him and shapes him into the person he slowly is becoming and becomes, especially in the third film. And he really is shocked by this, but it gives him the confidence to step up and take charge and be the leader he wants to be. And it really shows Toothless becoming the great dragon leader, I guess you could say. He's very strong and powerful, and he's able to take down these really giant creatures, these really ancient giant dragon creatures. There's two of them, they go head to head, and it's kind of interesting. And the way that Hiccup goes up against the villain of the piece, and we find out about him, but we don't know too much about him. And there's so many more dragons and so much more colour, and the animation is a step up from the last film. And I really like that. I think the animation slowly is getting better with each film. And I really like the continuation growth of each of the characters. I've been thoroughly impressed with both these films, and I think they're really, really well done and a great story. Okay, so number 3. So we're on to the last film. This is the one I saw recently. And yet again, it's a continuation of the evolvingness of Hiccup, his friends, and Toothless. And in this one, it's sort of, they're overrun by dragons. They've been rescuing dragons from being captured and taking them to their island and part of their tribe, but they're being overrun by them. And it's hard for them to control what's going on. And they really need a bigger place. They really need a bigger area for these dragons and humans to live together. Yet again, looks at Hiccup, who has sort of trying to be the leader everybody wants him to be, but he's still full of doubt. He doesn't know if he can do it. He doesn't know if he can become what they want him to be. We're introduced to a new villain. There's ultimately Dark Fury Hunter, who kills them and has been doing this since he was a little kid. And he's sort of an interesting sort of villain. He has particular darts that he uses that causes paralysis. And he only has 4 dragons that he works with. And he controls them by their own venom. It's kind of interesting what he does and what he's trying to do. So ultimately he's trying to kill Toothless. He's trying to get hold of him. And he's kind of an interesting sort of character, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we also meet a Light Fury. So this is another dragon like Toothless, but a female version. It shows how these two are trying to bond along the way, and how Hiccup tries to help him by making his tail more sufficient so he can fly by himself. which I think is great, so they don't need each other. It really looks at the separation of these two characters, trying to do their own thing but also trying to be part of a group. And it's very interesting and well done. Once this particular hunter finds where the Dark Fury is, Hiccup makes a decision of packing up all the dragons and all the people and heading off. They're trying to find a place called the Hidden World. And this was something that his father spoke about many times, that he believed it existed, and he wrote down in books and did some research. And he really wanted to find this. He felt it would be a place that people could live, and it's their journey. The film really looks at how Hiccup, Toothless are really starting to go their separate way. Hiccup's trying to keep everything the way it is, to keep the dragons as part of the world, but they're in danger in being with them. And he has to make the ultimate sacrifice and decision that really upsets him, but he has to do it for the safety of the dragons and himself and his people. And he's still struggling with being the leader he needs to be. But by the end of the film, he's sort of slowly getting there. The relationship between him and Astrid has grown enormously, and you can really see these two are going to bond and stay together for most of their lives. And the idea of marriage comes up, which they're both against. Things transpire in this film and it leads to a particularly interesting ending. I think the animation is top notch here. I think it's just evolved like the characters from the first film to this one, and it just looks beautiful. I like the hidden world that we get to see, the colours that are used there. It's really fantastic, really bright and popping colours. It's the evolution yet again of Hiccup and Toothless. Hiccup is really slowly becoming that hero, becoming the man his father was, and the man his father thought he could be. And Toothless is learning new abilities and growing and realising that he needs to be with this other light fury and not by himself, because they mate for life. And he's sort of looking for a different way as well. So it really looks at these two friends going off in different directions, trying to find the point and purpose of their life and to see where they fit. And I really liked that. I just thought this was a really great film and a great end to the trilogy. As a trilogy, it's one of the best trilogies. Each one is as good as the other. There's no difference in them. The story carries on from one film to the next, and they're just as good as each other, and I really like that. And it's very rare to find a trilogy where all the films are as good as the first. Final verdict. Look, as a trilogy, I think these films are brilliant. As single films, I think they work really well as well. I loved so much about these films. I was very impressed with them. And I've just really been impressed with this series, and I was sort of blown away by it. And I always go as far as to say this is my favourite animated trilogy that I've seen so far. I'm going to give this trilogy 4.5 out of 5. I was really thoroughly impressed with it, and I do recommend going seeing the third one because I think it's probably the best out of the series, but they're all really good. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.